everyone was focused on the president and his cost-cutting proposals yesterday, there was a hearing that got little to no press on Capitol Hill. It focused on the Muslim Brotherhood. The chair of the House Intelligence Subcommittee on Terrorism, Sue Myrick, raised a red flag that the U.S. doesn't have a strategy to deal with the shadowy group that's trying to assume power in Egypt.
The federal government does not have a comprehensive or consistent strategy for dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliated groups in America, nor does it have a strategy for dealing with the Brotherhood in Egypt or the Greater Middle East. We need to examine closely whether its true goal of setting up a worldwide Islamic regime is still in place.
Here now with their thoughts are Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch and author of Stealth Jihad, How Radical Islam is Subverting America Without Guns or Bombs. Dr. Jasser, let's start with you because you were one of the key witnesses in Representative Peter King's Homeland Security hearings a month or so ago. Tell us what you thought about the hearings today on the Hill.
Yeah, I can't tell you how important they are and how much of a service Congresswoman Myrick and the witnesses were doing in bringing to light a subject. When I talked about radicalization, I talked about a continuum, the fact that it's not just the violence at the end, but there's an ideology that separates some Muslim youth, not all, a minority, but a radical minority from the society, which is related to a slippery slope of political Islam. And we've been playing defense against ideology that's not only domestic, but global. And the Brotherhood has been the primary cancer cell. And she really brought to light some very academic, poignant testimony about the fact that we've had no strategy. We've been fighting a cold war of ideas, not only just playing defense, but with no strategy at all. And if we're going to penetrate the ideas of political Islam all around the world, we need to enable liberal, secular Muslims to start to fight this on the ground, to begin ideas of reform, the separation of mosque and state, and to fight this offensively, which we have had no strategy of doing.
No strategy. Mr. Spencer, one of the things that concerned us most about Egypt when Mubarak stepped down was this, in fact, problem of the Muslim Brotherhood making their way in. Do we know if the Muslim Brotherhood is making inroads into Egypt now?
It's happening more quickly than anybody could have anticipated, Eric. You know, not long ago, I was on your show, Follow the Money, and I said the Muslim Brotherhood is poised to take power in Egypt, and Juan Williams said I was fear-mongering. And now I just want to say to Juan Williams and to everybody else, I told you so. I tried to tell you the Muslim Brotherhood won 77% in a referendum just weeks ago in Egypt to change the constitution that will, in ways that will pave the way for its taking power. It is clear that it is the largest group in Egypt in opposition and the one that is poised to take power there. And so they're going to establish an Islamic State. And we also have to remember that Representative Myrick is right. The Brotherhood is in the United States also.
We'll get there, sir. We'll get there, Mr. Spencer. We'll get to
so on.
We'll get to the U.S. Dr. Jasser, less than 30 seconds or so. Tell us, is this a different Muslim Brotherhood than the one we know from past, I guess, terrorist ties?
Yeah, their core ideology, they may eschew violence, but their core ideology of Islamic supremacism, establishing an Islamic State through Sharia law, is still in place. They've never condemned that, and they haven't stepped away from it. But I hope people understand that we need to get out of the morass that created these groups, which was the dictatorships in the Middle East, and we may step backwards first, but the progress in the Middle East may seem messy, but it's the only way out of this, Robert and Eric, and I hope people see that this is the only way out, is to get rid of these thugs and get us on the ground to help mobilize them towards some type of secular democracy.
All right, we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to take it to how it's affecting us right here in the United States after the break. More with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser and Robert Spencer in a couple of minutes. We're back with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch. Mr. Spencer, you touched on it in the last block. Let's talk about it now. How does what's going on in Egypt, in fact, even in Libya, affect us here in America?
Well, Eric, we have to remember that the Muslim Brotherhood has a strategic goal for the United States that was delineated in a captured internal document that was unearthed a few years ago. And it's dedicated in the United States, in its own words, to eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within. That same document lists all the major Muslim organizations in the United States as Muslim Brotherhood-linked organizations, including the Muslim American Society, the Council on American Islamic Relations, parent group, the IAP, the Muslim Students Association, the Islamic Society of North America. These groups are Brotherhood Brotherhood groups that are working in the United States to subvert the U.S. Constitution and ultimately to replace it with Islamic law. And we have to recognize that and recognize that that's a political agenda that free people need to fight and resist.
Dr. Jasser, do you agree with Mr. Spencer? I mean, the one that really sticks out for me is CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. They're very much out there. They're very much trying to paint the picture of Muslims being not extremists, not radical, but Mr. Spencer says maybe they are. What do you think?
Well, I think, many of our families came to the U.S. to escape sort of these Islamist groups that claim to speak for us, and CARE is one of those examples. I mean, one of the best examples, Eric, is just a couple weeks ago, there was released and published on FoxNews.com a letter that Nihad Awad, the head of CARE, sent to the Gaddafi thug asking for $15 million for his peace foundation, in which he called Gaddafi the excellency of Islam, the great Muslim leader, etc. So you see how important it is that these dictators are completely in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood front groups, these legacy groups that claim to speak for Muslims, but they're all about control, collectivization of our community, trying to say that we all speak as one rather than the diversity that we really are, which is those of us that want liberty, that want freedom, that want separation of mosque and state, and want to stay away from groups like CARE and Brotherhood type mentality.
Mr. Spencer, let's take the Libya right now. I mean, there's a power struggle going on in Libya. Frankly, it may divide the country in half, or either the rebels or Gaddafi could win out. But if the rebels take over, do we know that there's no Muslim Brotherhood or even Al-Qaeda or Taliban involved with the rebels?
Well, actually, we know just the opposite. We know that there's a significant Al-Qaeda presence among the rebels. We know that one of their trainers is a Guantanamo detainee who was released in 2008. We know that eastern Libya, the center of resistance to Gaddafi, was also the center of jihad warriors going from Libya into Iraq. More came from that area of Libya than any other region of the Islamic world into Iraq to wage jihad against American troops there. And so this is the resistance to Gaddafi. Here again, just as in Egypt, we're going to see an Islamic State in Libya following Gaddafi that's going to be even more hostile to the United States than he is.
Dr. Jasser, very quickly, the rebels have asked us for a $2 billion loan, a little help there. Would that be a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, I think the only money we should be putting in is money that we follow in with people on the ground to help them build institutions, not from arm's length, but us working with secular Democrats on the ground for solutions, because these problems we keep talking about exist, but they exist because we've sort of left the Middle East to be at the hands of dictators, and it's time for us to get the ideas of liberty infused on the ground so that we have the advocates like we did in Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia. When those dictatorships left, we went there and advocated for freedom, and we need to help them build those institutions, but not just dumping money at it.
Right.
We need to follow it.
Fascinating topic. Thank you guys, Mr. Robert Spencer and Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Thank you guys.